Incoming transmission.
All right, James, welcome to Boosting the Signal. My name is Ed. How are you, James? We've had a lot of connection issues this morning, so I'm going to hope that this goes smoothly and we're going to just start recording as quickly as we can. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you? Thanks for your
Not too
time today.
bad. A little frustrated with my internet this morning. Other than that, Spectrum, you're getting a call.
It's the way of the world, waiting for Zoom. No, good, thank you. Yeah, it's a very wet and windy Friday afternoon here in jolly old England. But
Uh,
we've had
so
a good run up until today. I think the autumn has suddenly arrived.
it's a cold morning here. So, but
Yes.
Yeah, I woke up and I was like, oh, I gotta get going. I gotta get going. I was late last night on Zoom, and I think what happened was I had my settings were set to Bluetooth at the time, and looking, it was searching for my earbuds the whole time, and that's why I was like, oh, so I'm not hearing you. But I gotta tell you, your picture quality is way better than what we had in the 75 other attempts we've had this morning. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Same face, sadly, but at least you can see me.
I love all the beautiful ships behind you, and I'd like to
Thank
know
you.
more about your process. And I assume that these are all 100%, made by you, or are these kits, or
They're made by me. Well, assembled and painted by me. Yeah, I'm just trying to double check, don't make sure I'm not lying. Yes, yes. So yes, so they're a combination of multiple different types of kits. So there's the traditional sort of plastic styrene kit that you sort of buy from the shop,
yeah.
like that one there, that Enterprise D. Then there's some which are sort of mixed media, like that Nebula I'm trying to point out there is a combination of plastic styrene and cast resin pieces.
Oh,
And then
okay.
there's the Enterprise F there, which is entirely 3D printed using what's known as an FDM printer, which is it's basically plastic, but it's 3D printed. And then somewhere here is sort of other ones are also 3D printed, but they're sort of the other type of printing, which is resin-based printers. So they're sort of like photoactive resin,
Oh, wow.
sort of certain details. But the Enterprise F is enormous, and it would take a long time to print with a resin machine. It's much higher detail. It's sort of the time is a bit of a factor, but it's also it's almost like sort of a little bit more expensive as a product to use. So you have to sort of
Yeah.
weigh up between. So it's better for detailed parts.
I
The
imagine
resin.
it was difficult getting the balance right. You have the one tiny little stand holding up the entire universe of the F right there, and I'm thinking like the balance just is off the charts, unimaginable to me.
It is. It's yeah. You're gonna get you after you've built a couple. You find its sort of center of gravity, and if it doesn't always work, um, brass tubes and an awful lot of glue is the best way to do it. And there's sort of there's some other like epoxy resin you can use. It sort of like dries. It's so rock hard. It's almost harder than the model itself, so it will never snap.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, that is made. Let's try and think. The saucer is made up of two halves, sort of front and back stuck together, as is the secondary hull. And to connect the secondary hull together is basically there's two whopping great brass rods, brass tubes sort of stuck through as like a spine.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just it would sort of snap under its own weight. So yeah, lots of bit of brute force,
You were
sanding, and
you were kind enough to send me a few pictures of some of your amazing work ahead of time. And as I was looking through them, and I want to make sure I put them on the screen for everyone to see now, just in case we do not touch base on every single one of them. But they're all amazing. I see a Constitution class behind you, but there might even be a Defiant back there. But I'm not
yes,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're both right on both counts. Actually,
Yeah.
there's yes, that Constitution is it's actually the hood as opposed to the Enterprise, and
Okay.
then the Defiant it's a Defiant class, but I think I've called that one the Warspite, and then
Okay.
I printed this one in clear resin,
I
so it's
love
the
that. I love that.
cloaked Defiant.
I love that so much. I'm a Defiant guy. Like I have a few ships. I don't have a lot of ships when it comes to Star Trek ships in my collection, but the Defiant is number one in my heart. So anytime I see something Defiant, I make a point to,
Ah,
you
very
know,
good. Yeah, I just
get
saw. Yeah,
that.
there's another one behind me. It's an old Eagle Moss one, so it's sort of it's a it's a what's that die cast metal I think it is. But I painted that
Right.
one black. It's supposed to be the USS Monitor from one of the William Shatner books, which name escapes me off the top of my head.
Oh, that one I think was that. Oh, did it begin with a V?
Yeah, I can't remember
Yeah.
now. It's the one with the
It's
ball
not
bit.
canon. It doesn't matter.
No, no, it just always stuck in my head. You know, a black sort of stealth defiant is quite cool. So yeah, that's a sort of lockdown special for that one. But yeah, it sort of keeps me out of trouble. Um, and I think yeah, sort of a lot of these are they take a long time to build, and but I've been making models since I was probably about 7, basically with my
Wow.
dad. Sort of it's a I think everyone needs a hobby, and I spend a lot of my time sort of the day job sort of tapping away on the computer and moving a mouse around. So I think it's quite nice to not do that and make something physical come to life. Especially when you sort of start getting into 3D printing world, it literally doesn't exist until you press print, which is quite nice. So yeah, it's nice to sort of see these things come to life a bit.
When it comes to painting them, just out of curiosity, is this something that you do by hand, or are there like you know, stickers that you lay across? How does that go about?
A bit of both really. It depends ultimately what ship it is, but the process is basically the same. Once you sort of assembled it, whether or not you have lighting or not, but once you're sort of ready to sort of start changing the color, I use a rattle can primer basically. So you do a couple of light coats and just leave that for a couple of days just to dry. Sort of you learn quite quickly making models. There's a difference between paint drying and paint curing. There's a lot of these things, especially like you think of like the Enterprise D, for instance, there's the Aztec pattern, and that's made up of basically 4 different colors. So if you're sort of combination of masking tape and or vinyl painting masks, if you're constantly putting tape down on paint, you can pull the paint up, which you don't want. Um,
Yeah.
so sort of once you could get that, yeah, generally just because of the amount of area you need to cover, I use an airbrush predominantly, sort of get that bit's grey, that bit's blue, that bit's orange, etc., 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 and then go back in with paint brushes and do it by hand. Some of the more detailed areas, because you can get learning a paintbrushes can take a lifetime, and some bits are just too small to airbrush, in my opinion. It's ultimately is paint and masking tape, and you can
Yeah.
do it again. You're not going to break anything. You just need to repaint things. So, you know, if you don't leave the primer long enough, you can pull paint up, and you have to patch it and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a combination of different things, and then to circle back to your question, once it's sort of painted, then there are depends who you ask, decals or decals, one or the other, with like the ship's registry and the names and the numbers and thrusters and this, that, and the other sort of plastic model kits, like the one I can see the Enterprise E behind you comes with a set of decals in that for the name and the pennants, etc., etc. Those get sort of decal, it's water slide basically. You sort of put those on the web and the on the model itself, and then you're basically done. Some models come with Aztec pattern as a decal. Um, I'm not a big fan personally because they're quite expensive for what they are, and then you have to they're not they are sort of like I'd say 99% the same shape and size as what you need. If you imagine sort of like this Enterprise D saucer is basically made up of certain panels, a certain shape, but they are mirrored, but they're not really
Yeah.
because it's an injection model kit, so there's not an exact mirror from left side panel 2 to right side panel 3. So you have to sort of trim them to cut. But if you get it wrong, you'll have a big hole. And it's a little thing you want to watch out for.
I remember 1993. I was my first model I'd ever done. I never did modeling, and then a family friend had gifted me the Enterprise D, And he's like, here, you gotta try this. I was like, okay. So he gifted me all of the paints and the brushes and everything, and it was, as a kid, I was like hog heaven. But I remember I had no knowledge of airbrushing, of course, in 1993. I didn't, none of this was in my head, and masking, and I knew Aztecing, and I knew how on the D I had to do it. So I remember doing everything by hand, and I would love to have that model now just so it could be ridiculed online on how bad it is. But it was so difficult. I mean, we're talking 6 months of me trying to paint in all of the Aztecing just on the saucer section alone. And when I look at this model back here of the E that you pointed out, it was gifted to me recently. And like I've never shared it on any of my social channels because I don't want to do it disrespect. It still has the wrapping on it and everything else. And I thought if I'm ever going to do it, plus I have a D now. I was recently given a D. And if I do these, I want to make sure I go into it properly with the knowledge that I can at least do it, 6% as well as someone as yourself or, anyone else. And, but I'm thoroughly impressed and intrigued by everything you do.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I think this one here is probably about the same age. I built that in 1994, that Enterprise D, after Generations came out, and that's Aztec painted by hand. It's only got two colors, like sort of did the panels, but I think sort of nowadays there's final painting masks available for that, and you can get sort of full Aztec decals for it. But um, a lot of people, it involves, to get a smooth finish, you need it to be silky smooth as an android's bottom, as they say. And a lot of people, it's sort of a rite of passage for the Enterprise D because you have to sand off all the ridge, all the panel lines because they're wrong. So there's a
Yeah.
big, depends who you ask, there's a big thing about how accurate it is. The shape is accurate. It's got a saucer and a
Well,
secondary hull and
well,
two
not
nacelles.
only that, but you want to, which model are you basing it upon? I mean,
Well,
fifth season had a completely different model,
absolutely,
a
absolutely.
far
And,
superior model in my opinion. But
and I think, just going back to what you're saying about doing it justice, I think the honest thing is don't compare yourself to anyone. Do it
yeah,
because you enjoy it. If it's a pastime you want, some people go running, some people knit, some people watch TV, some people do origami. If it's something you enjoy and are passionate about enough to get your hands dirty, you paint it. If you haven't made a model properly until you cut your finger with a knife, glued your fingers together, got paint on your trousers. It's sort of don't compare it to things. I mean, lucky enough over the years to start conversations and sort of various little model making groups like Jeff from last week, that group in
yes,
COVID. I was one of those people. So Jeff and I have known each other since COVID. But we both know someone who makes models who are quantum level higher than mine. They make mine look like I've done them in the dark with my eyes closed. So I know that, but I like doing it. I work, young family and a dog. Once the dishes are done, the dogs walk, the children are fed. I like sitting up here and painting things together. It's a hobby. It's meant to be enjoyed. You'll learn something every time you make a model. You put it together, and next time you go, you know what? I'll try that next time, or sort of
yeah.
just sort of push yourself. Um, it's like sort of working away on some of the models in COVID. Very much what Jeff was saying last time. Had a lot of free time, and once you've done your family Zoom pub quizzes and all that sort of stuff we used to do, I thought I'm going to make a model. I built 18 1:350 scale naval warship models
Wow.
in a row and put them on my YouTube channel, and just wanted to change the subject matter basically. And I thought, well, I've got an Enterprise C up in the loft, and I thought, oh well, maybe everything hasn't quite shut down. Maybe I'll get a new one and I'll sort of make a new model. But it's slightly weirdly rare at the time, and it was very expensive to buy. It was best part of £100. Can't do the dollars in my head. It's probably about $130, which is an awful lot for
Yeah,
what it.
pretty much whatever it is, like if it's a euro or it's a pound, I usually add about $30 for
Yeah,
states.
so it's something they're probably about half that price now, but I remembered I had an old one up in the loft, and I thought, I know, I'll just strip the paint off, which you can do. You can get oven cleaner, put it in a plastic bag, cover it in stuff, leave it for 2 days, and then you can scrub it all off and basically have a raw plastic kit. So I did that, and I thought, oh, I might take some photos. Didn't know what to do, so I put it on Instagram. Fast forward a couple of months, and that sort of got progressed. I met Jeff and various other people, and then someone said to me, I've got this big NX01 kit. Would you build it for me? And how much would it cost? I was like, what? I've
That's
not done
interesting.
that. So yeah, and so this chap in Ireland, and so I said, okay, fine, let's do that. And so we started building that as like my first sort of proper commission job, and that was about sort of May, June 2020, and I haven't stopped.
Wow.
So it's sort of it's nice to get to sort of turn your hobby into a bit of a bit of beer money, bit of pocket money, to
Yeah.
buy. If I can buy a model or two out of it, I'm happy, basically. So yeah, I think it's sort of just enjoy it. That's all it is, really. Find something you like. Whether it's Star Trek models or Navy models, tanks, airplanes, doesn't really matter. There's something, if you don't like the subject matter, you'll never build it. But if it's something you like, you're halfway there.
We have a local shop here. It's called Dad's Toy Shop. And I remember when I was a kid growing up, going in there and I'd see models, but it was never something that I'd ever did. I was more into model rockets that you could
Oh, okay.
launch. And we live in a very space oriented town. Everything in where we live is space oriented. So yeah, it was kind of the thing. So we still have model rocket competitions here every year,
Oh,
and that was
wow.
something I did. And then so model making was just a step, step up, and I just had to move up there. And then life got in the way, and I stopped doing it. And the one thing that I do remember the most about doing those was I always chose the same color for my ships. And it was like, because I wanted to, Federation always has that blue gray. So I went with a gold gray. And I was like, and that's always stuck with me. And every time I see the color gold gray, I'm like, oh, it's a ship color. It's like, it's like, but have you tried to stay uniform with your colors? Because I noticed like, I can see the Nebula class, I can see your D, and lighting, it could be the lighting, it could whatever, but it's slightly different for me when I'm looking
They
at
are
it.
slightly different. Yeah, I think the honest answer is there's consistency. I think it depends. It's partly I still haven't found the right color. I think is the honest answer. Um,
Yeah.
so the Nebula and the D are probably 25 years difference in age.
Yeah.
But the Nebula has got it was a COVID special again, but I printed out Aztec decals from a website myself and sort of maybe I did basically the file. I made it a bit darker because they were quite hard to see, and I put it down the first time. I just literally couldn't see it, so I deliberately made it a bit darker. So
Okay.
is it come back to that? Is it accurate? No.
No,
Do I care?
what
Not
is
really.
accurate?
Well,
In
it's
space,
yeah,
it depends on what star you're near and what light's hitting the hull. I
absolutely.
mean,
Yeah,
you
I
want to
think
talk
a lot
about
of people.
accuracy? Think about the Klingon D7. Who's putting that out? There's that D7 that's coming out, and you got one that's gray and one that's kind of got the green hue from the bottom and stuff. Accuracy is based upon what you want. I mean, you get right down to accuracy. Kirk wasn't wearing a yellow shirt, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think is it accurate? I think that's a whole nother conversation for people a lot smarter than me, I think. But I think, you know, for no other reason than accurate to what is the
Yeah,
point. I think there's a studio model that was built by, let's just say, Industrial Light and Magic. Um, the photos you see on the web are of the model under very bright lights in a
yeah,
workshop, which is different to the color you see it on the screen. And then you move into when they started designing 3D ships, as in not physical ships, that's a different color again.
yeah.
Your
Well,
TV
even
is a different color to mine. I think
well,
that's a turquoise blue. You might think that's a light blue. So it's a never ending debate.
to that end, with the Phoenix I see behind you, um, that's more of a silver, and I imagine the process would have been completely different. And it's take this as a compliment. It's so silver, it feels reflective when I'm looking at it.
Yes, yeah, that's deliberate. I mean, that's got one, two, three different types of metallic silver paint on that particular one, but I made it deliberately
Well, that
shiny.
makes sense.
Yeah, well, I thought so. I mean, I thought, it's based off of, is it a Titan missile? So I looked at Titan missile pictures, and they're all aluminium. I think it's called duralium.
Yeah,
Then
I
there's
think they said uranium. It was whatever Lily was able to find. She
yes,
was,
yeah, and titanium as a color. So there's some very good paints by Vallejo that I use. It's sort of like they've got the metallic paint range basically, obviously, but they've got very tiny flakes of metallic pigment paint in the mix, so it's
yeah,
really, really bright. If you imagine like the chrome version of it, it's sort of deliberately reflective, and then you put gloss varnish on it, and it sort of changes the hue anyway. But the idea being, if you look at it, you can see it's shiny and reflective, but if you sort of turn it a little bit, different bits have a different brightness, and you turn it again in the light, and it sort of changes. So it looks like it's made up of parts, which helps with a bit of a scale factor, which is sort of the studio models try and sort of build in. So it it's when you start moving away from something that looks like something that's a painted toy
yeah.
into a model replica. It's like sort of there's a bit of a spectrum involved.
Well, the attention to detail is wonderful, I'm hoping that that's actually one of the pictures that you sent me. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing the Phoenix.
I haven't. I shall send it to you.
I would love to. I would love to have a really good look at that. You spoke about your your YouTube page. I have not discovered that. So if you could tell us more about where to find you on YouTube, and are you still posting?
Yeah, well, the channel is called JJ Model Making. It's all about Navy ships.
Okay.
Um, but I haven't really posted on it since COVID. So a lot of my subscribers are probably going, when are you ever going to do it again? I think it's sort of the transition you went through, so through COVID and moving from sort of Navy ships over to Star Trek stuff is sort of I started putting some of the Star Trek models like a couple of an Enterprise Constitution class, coming over the A or the original one, and then the Excelsior class, which is how I got to know Jeff
Yeah.
from your last video. He watched it and asked what my Excelsior model when he was making his, and asked me questions, and that's how we got in touch. But I rapidly found out that people who like sort of seeing the USS Enterprise aircraft carrier don't really give a hoots about the USS Enterprise Starship. So I stopped sort of posting it
Mm.
on YouTube. But then that's when I sort of created went on Instagram for the first time. I always thought Instagram is I think in some degrees it still is people taking photos of themselves on holiday and saying, look where I am, which is basically what Instagram is. But I sort of went through that. Annoyingly got hacked back in 2022. Yeah, so I lost everything,
Oh,
6 or 7 thousand followers. Yeah, so check those dual factor authentication kids. Don't do what I did, but so rebuilt it and sort of got back up to where I was, which is good news. But I think yeah, as a consequence of that, my first channel page is gone. So it's James Jacob Model Making on Instagram now is where most of my model stuff, and I have got a website as well, which is a bit of a portfolio as well. So I can send you some details on that if you're interested.
yeah, yeah, and all the links will be below. I'll make sure everyone check it out, put them on screen. Um, that way, yeah, because I'll sit down and I'll spend an afternoon just checking everything out, and you know
Thank you.
it's kind of therapeutic. Personally, I think I would love. You say people wouldn't be interested in the the aircraft carrier to the ship. I think there's a lot of crossover. I think a lot of people like both. Um, I would hope, and even if they wouldn't, it's a good way to display the eclecticness of what you do.
Yeah,
Now,
definitely.
when I think of that, and you talk about someone asking you if you could build this and you could do that for them, is this something that you are still doing actively? Are you taking, like, if someone said, "Hey, can you build me the blah blah?" You know,
Yeah, absolutely. Still, yeah, I've got two commissions on at the moment, and got a third sort of waiting in the wings, as it were. So into next year, as it were, for sort of to start on anything. But yeah, absolutely. If you've got something, any watchers or viewers want to sort of get in touch about, either drop me a note on Instagram, or there's a contact us page on my website. And just drop me a note. We can just start a discussion. As you can probably tell from my voice, I am based in the UK, but I sort of sent things as far away as Australia, California, I think is the furthest away. My sort of toying with the idea of sort of getting a little map and sort of putting where some of my models end up. But yeah, they go, they've been sent all over the world.
I've
Some
thought about doing that and putting a red pin every time I talk to somebody different in the world. I've been all over. I've had Germany, Ireland, UK, Australia, Buffalo, New York.
It's amazing,
So
isn't it? The modern world we live in.
it's fun. Well, this is the thing. Like, I'm a Star Trek fan, so I've always grown up with the feeling that we are one. We're not, we are not anything more than human. We are human, and so that's always been my belief structure. It doesn't matter to me the color of the skin or the religion or anything. And so this boosting a signal is pretty much my way of saying, like, I'm going to bring everybody. I have no line drawn, and
Mhm.
as long as we're here for positivity and inclusion, that's all I care about. And I want people to know more about that. So,
Yeah, that's definitely. I think that's a sentiment followed by lots of people. Which I think you sort of like you're saying about building that model. There's a lot of really talented people in various Facebook groups, so that's a good place. Join some of them and just see what other people do, and they might, you know, some of them have got enough followers and enough, members or whatever they're called. So the odds are you won't have to wait too long before someone's making a model that you are,
yeah.
and if they're starting on the same journey like this. I'm currently building what's it called? So 1 to 700 scale Enterprise B 3D printed model.
Wow.
And I know that two people have just finished at 650 scale, so it's a little bit bigger, but three other people are basically at the same stage that I am. So it's quite good sort of bouncing idea. Like we're literally about a week or two apart from when we started. So we're sort of at the same point along the process. So sort of, bouncing ideas around. And I think sort of that community spirit really helps you because, in some ways you do find yourself sort of sitting in a room with a light staring over something which is really small with a pair of tweezers, and it can be, if you get under your skin, a bit of a lonely hobby. But in some ways I personally quite like that because life is full of ups and downs, as we all know, and internet connectivity issues. But I find when I'm doing these models I can't think about anything else, because otherwise I'll cut my finger, I will burn my hand with a soldering iron. I need to concentrate, so it's in some way you kind of zone off a little bit, or zone out. So that's quite nice. But I think the flip side is the sense of community. And when I was sort of growing up, the first model I ever built was with my dad. It was Luke Skywalker's X-wing, and I think I was about 7. I got it for Christmas. We had a great time, a bit of father-son bonding. We painted it. We hung it from my ceiling. About a week later, we realised we glued Luke's arms on backwards. You know, you know, but I made up with my dad, and it's hanging on my ceiling. That's brilliant. And the only person I knew in the world who made models, apart from me, was my cousin. Um,
Yeah.
Not quite in shop, but he built this 1 to 350 scale battleship Bismarck, and then the F-14 from Top Gun. And I was like, oh, because he's about 7 years older than me, so he's sort of closest I have to a big brother in essence. And I thought, that's amazing. I really want to do that sort of stuff. And I literally never knew anyone at all who built models until 2015, when I sort of got back into it and sort of like paying attention to YouTube and stuff. And I realized I'm not on my own. There are other people who do this sort of thing. So it's quite nice. And then, Facebook and groups and whatnot, and it sort of keeps on going. I still don't get TikTok. I am on TikTok. I'm sorry if you follow me and you don't see it. I think I'm too old for TikTok. But, exchanging ideas with people is sort of the plus side of sort of the social media world that we live in. I think you do get the occasional "that's not screen accurate" or "that's not to scale" or "the windows are too big" kind of comments. So, oh, okay, fine. I was like, it's not real. It's a model based on a fictional TV show.
Like that would
So
never be there. Luke's arms would be correct.
exactly. Where's the scar on his face? It's like, oh, for the god's sake. So that sort of thing. But it is supposed to be fun after all.
That you speak. It's a small subject, but the scar on his face. That was something I didn't even know about until like 5 years ago. Never
No, I
noticed
didn't
it
know.
as a kid.
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought he looked a
Yeah,
bit different, but then he
yeah,
thought he's 3 years older.
yeah,
We all change.
it happens. Um, yeah, I didn't have anybody like I'm a single child, as it were, only child. And so like I didn't have I had an uncle, so like I emulated my uncle and everything else. And if he would have been in the models or something like that, I would have jumped on it. But when the family friend had come to us and he knew I liked Star Trek and he liked Star Trek and he didn't have anyone to talk to, and that was good. You never know where that you're going to influence somebody, and hopefully somebody is influenced by you. As for TikTok, I'm not on TikTok. People have told me I need to be on TikTok. I um I signed up.
Wonderful.
I signed up like 4 or 5 years ago when it first came on because I wanted to enter a contest. I did one thing and I let it set, and then I think it was about a year ago. My wife said something about something on TikTok, and I said, well, I'll log in, and it said that I had been banned, and I was like, well, all right, well, whatever, so I
That's
move
that
on.
then. Yes, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, no, I think it's a bit of a funny one because yeah, I've got a younger brother and a sister, but both of them and my mum and dad are all extraordinarily creative. Dad is a creative director of an ad agency. My mum designed clothes for Marks and Spencer before she had me. My sister is a graphic designer. My brother did media relations. I did geology at university, so not very creative at all in that sense. I was the black sheep, but and then other people sort of along. So, well, you are creative though, because you do all this sort of stuff. Like, I thought, well, no, I'm not sure I am really. I'm, painting things grey, predominantly. But I think, it depends how you look at it. It's sort of nice to use the left or right side of the brain, whichever is the creative. The other bit that I don't use day to day while at work. So I think give it a go. I think if you've ever got anyone a burning desire to sort of make something, you know, could it be improved? Yes, I do that every single time. I'm looking at things behind me. I know that some of that's got bit of paint splodges I've still not fixed, and that Enterprise D, which I did refit for its 15th birthday many moons ago, and sort of gave it a complete repaint. But I know it could be better, and if I did it today, it would look very different. But I think it's a good thing about all these ships is I find there's more to Star Trek than the Enterprise. I think is sort of also a way. So I think sort of choosing the name of sort of certain ships is not quite in the shop, but I've got uh, the USS Galaxy class, but the prototype version with the NX decal. I've got the Andrew Probert Ambassador class as another 3D printed one with the NX, and got some nice comments from Mr. Probert himself when I posted
No, he
pictures
couldn't
on,
ask for more than that.
which is quite good. So I thought I'll take that. That's a good day. It's a bit of a. I always think sort of the sore lemon of sort of Star Trek world is sort of if you imagine you're in Starfleet, you don't get posted the Enterprise, then well life's rubbish, isn't it really? But a lot of these are sort of got I quite like picking the name. I think there's maybe it's slightly biased by being British, but the Grand Navy of the First World War is countless extraordinary names to which name is the starship, Resolute, Endeavour, Discovery. I'm just trying to think of other names. Warspite, Hood. Not, there's only one Enterprise on there. Oh, to like that one as well. So there's two Enterprises. I have got an Enterprise E, which I'm looking at here, just out of frame. But I think I've only got 3 out of far, 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 far too many models.
Well, no,
Called the
I like them all, and I love how you choose the naming. Whenever I don't know if you ever saw, I did a Throwback Thursday post one time on My Figure Universe, and I had shown that I had, I used to draw the ships, from the profile and like, do the whole write up. So I would do that all the time as a child, and I would name them after friends. And, there's
Mm,
like, because that's who I was. Like my crew was always my friends and stuff that I had that had no interest in Star Trek whatsoever. I'd show them and they'd be like, they didn't give a crap, but
yeah.
but still,
Exactly. Yeah, I think I love a good name. Like one I think got a steam runner up there, which is the Trafalgar, British.
yeah.
Um, the multi-vector assault mode Prometheus class. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's
I see how you. Oh wow, I
yes.
see how you broke that
So I
apart.
think
That's
I think it's
great.
one of the ones I sent you. But yeah, through the clever
Yeah,
use of Photoshop, the magic is sort of splitting the ship out, but it's helped with a bit of a brass rod
I
behind.
I know that our time is coming close to an end because I know you have a hard out, you said, for 3 p.m. So I do want to ask one last question on ship
Sure.
making. Have you attempted any 32nd century ships with the separated nacelles and that 32nd century feel yet?
No. So
Okay.
this, this is the Voyager J, I
EJ,
think,
yes.
if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. You're correct.
I think I know how to do it. Basically, I think to sort of make it, you'd never be able to obviously have it floating in midair, the split
No.
nacelles. It's an annoying thing called physics, just won't let you do that. But I always think I try and sort of use what's called the pantomime effect. If you sort of, if you're literally holding something that close to your face, it looks very different than when you're at arm's length, so you can't see bits of things you've missed. But I think sort of the trick would be to use you can get sort of clear perspex rod of various thickness to sort of it would be transparent. You can see it. It's not completely transparent. It's got shape and edges to it, and you can see it in the light. But it's the best thing we have in 2025. The catch is that it's plastic and it bends under weight. Um, it's like sort of fiber optic. There's a random bit here from you can see it. That's it's got strength, but you can't. It's got
But it's
no.
not Ken
It's not
style. You don't
strong
have
enough.
that.
Yeah, you can't. You literally anything heavier than a paperclip, and you won't be able to hold it up. So um, that's the only really way you can do it. Is like use a perspex rods or cheat and use Photoshop. But I've that's been printed for probably about 6 months, and I haven't really gone back to it yet. I think that would be nice to do. Um, I think there was one that someone sent me a link from a video game. I think it was also some. It wasn't the show itself, but it had like a purple colored tint to it, as opposed to sort of the one that's in the show.
Hmm.
I can't quite remember where that came from, but yeah, one day I'm not as invested in the Discovery era show personally. It's not that I don't like the show. I think it's just the ships haven't got the sort of emotional attachment for me.
No, I get it. I get it.
I think that's the sort of thing. I think I'm a Picard era guy. I think that's where I got into watching Star Trek when I was oh god 7 8. Basically, when I was younger. We lived in America, and Encounter at Farpoint was on TV, and I was at my friend's house after school, and we were both sort of running around the sitting room, and it was on TV, and I think his older brother was watching it. I just saw it, the Enterprise sort of split, and we both literally stopped in our tracks. What is that? I knew of Star Trek, but it was on late at night, and I was 7, and I kind of knew what it was and movies, but didn't really connect. So I
Yeah.
sort of grew up with Picard and the gang, and I think I sort of more personally follow their adventures than Michael Burnham.
See, that would have been the perfect title for his series, Picard and the Gang. That would have been.
Picard and the
I
gang,
would have tuned
exactly.
into 5 seasons of that.
Yeah, they're available for weddings,
Yeah.
discos,
Right. To
anything.
crossovers with like the Get Down. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah,
still.
you know,
Well, I appreciate your time, sir, and I appreciate all this information and learning more about your process, getting to know you. I hope everybody goes and gives you a follow. Everyone,
thank
go
you.
follow James and go ahead and tell us where to follow you at exactly. It'll
Well,
be
the
on
best place,
screen too.
yeah, James Jacob model making on Instagram is probably the best place, or you might find me on various Facebook groups.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will, look forward to the future and what you have coming.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much for having me and appreciate your time. And I will be especially keeping an eye out for your model to be made.
Yeah. Yeah. Once I can give it,
Hopefully
the
inspired
proper, what it needs.
what
So,
it needs. Well,
yeah.
drop me a message. We will get there.
All
We will
right.
get
Thank you.
brilliant. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye bye.